Yeah, now you see me, huh? Thank you. Thank you. Let's get right into the other video here. Hold on. I got it. Everybody, welcome to episode 71. Hey, we got a live production going today. Things are going to look a little bit different. Thank you for going through the growing pains with us. But the information is still the vital stuff we go through every week here. And just a quick reminder, you can always reach out to us on the socials. We do reply. Blue, what are we going to talk about today in a monumental episode 71?
The 13th Zodiac Cosmology sign, Ophiuchus. Dimensions, constellations, the Starseeds authorical link, and the maintainment code of how it was taken out of the Zodiac signs itself, but it's still part of one of the main replicated speeds. So the importance and vitality that goes with it that runs on the actual Arcturian calendars.
Wow. Sounds like some interesting stuff here. And I did look at the show notes here, and I'm thinking that it's, geez, how shall I say? I think things have been adjusted over time, which should be a fair way to put that. So we'll talk about that in just a second. Hey, if we're not where you find your stuff, let us know where you get your stuff, and well, we'll try to get on those platforms. We try to reach out to everybody on the socials, and of course, as you see, we're wearing gear today that match, and we didn't call each other ahead of time, coordinate this, right? All right, as you see, we do have some gear. You can join the cause. Go ahead and check out some gear. We have that all over the socials and all over our videos. Blue, let's get right into 71.
Absolutely. 13th Zodiac sign for Ophiuchus. Constellation lies between Scorpius and Sagittarius. While Ophiuchus is one of the 13 constellations that cross the ecliptic sun's path, it's not part of the traditional 12 system. One reason is why the higher-ups, including those in the governmental protocol and that run through the system, they want to direct something on a 12-strand frequency outlet. So the humans' protocols, they have 1 year replicated speed. So self-diagnosis is they're born on that replicated speed that are added to the extra month, but there is an actual extra month to that. Or is an actual constellational code. And what's interesting, though, with this, because it does not run on the normal calendar itself, there is a traditional Arcturian calendar. So in that type of calendar, what I'm saying, it runs on these signs of the zodiac. So the Capricorn, and I do have this on here, would be January 20th to February 16th. Aquarius, 16th to March 11th. Pisces, March 11th. April 18th, ongoing. I mean, like, let's just say Virgo used to be running into the 28th onwards. It would be now September 16th to October 30th. And then interesting facts is Scorpio and Sagittarius, because they run on lines of the constellations, and they see that numerical event if there's an authorical stranding that runs between that designation codes and the domain here through humans itself. It would affect the whole calendar and would run between November 29th and December 17th, because the actual physical layout, the terminational effect of that constellation running into the perimeter. There is something even more interesting with Ophiuchus, though. One other reason that they don't want to designate that to a numerical sequencing base is because of the Starseeds. So there are potential entities in humanoid form or designational human self that have an awakening perception code or something that's accessed as a starseed as on its own and run through that actual 13th constellation and reciprocated through that timeline event. But so in between those actual zones and perimeters, there may be certain entities like that who have gifts and may not be aware of it. More a hyphenated code of they have come maybe from another terrestrial domain altogether.
So let me get this straight. There were 13 of these, but because it didn't fit into a certain model or in a certain box, they manually changed this to 12. So how does that directly affect those people?
Well, because they want to run it on a 12 timeline calendar, and humans year to year for their lifespans. So that's how they set control of the actual timeline zones itself upon the matrix.
Okay, so I'm
just say that there might be an extension they're not aware of.
So I'm looking at this list here, and from November 29th to December 17th seems to be the one they took out, and I don't know how to pronounce that. Ophiuchus? I don't know, but you see it there on the screen, folks. So here's my question: if I'm in that date, like if I was born in that time, but then everything got adjusted time-wise, does that create a problem with me, with my energy, with my chi, with my abilities, with my possible third eye? I mean, where is the difficulty for me if that's the star sign I was born under? Or is there a difficulty?
There's a celestial link. There's always going to be a celestial link to the augmented codes of the DNA structure itself and how it replicates into the scene of events. And it won't change no matter what. Even if that potentially is, you still signalize as something else. You know, you're fundamentally finding that it might be a little bit more than you realize. But yeah, it may affect the timeline domains. But like I said, they want to keep an equalized variable into that. They don't want to change the zodiac signs already. The 13th is very important because it runs in to certain impositions.
All right.
The celestial cosmos.
So the 13th, by the 13th, according to the chart I have here, what you're telling me is that Sagittarius is the 13th? Or is it Capricorn that's the 13th? Because those dates are moved around. And like, for instance, I'm a Capricorn. I'm born in late December.
It would probably be most likely in between those, that variable. As the 13th. Scorpio and Sagittarius, it would be in between those.
All right. So if I'm catching what you're throwing down here, celestially, nothing's going to change because I have this connection still, regardless of whatever man-made construct we go to call things. Is that correct?
Yes. I mean, yes, there's still an interlink. But those that have that potential domain through that timeline, in between that, may have a hyphenated sense of awareness. They may be authorically stranded different. And there's a potential that goes into the cosmos itself that links up to that. Unique gifts.
What kind of unique gifts?
Well, those that have, these are more awakened to the what's outside of the box than they are coordinate. There are those also as starseeds, the different types of star races that it could incubate around that timeline and potentially take over humanoid forms, run through those celestial domains and interlink. There's a higher awareness as well through the Arcturians. The Arcturians have a mainframe through that constellation that kind of semi-links up to it as well, but they're more scarce.
That's curious to me. Are people... There's nothing I can do about this. There's nothing I have to worry about this. There's nothing that I can change, just as long as I don't swallow everything that man gives me in their construct, hook, line, and sinker. Is that what I'm taking? This is just another example of the elites or established or whoever trying to take control of everything. But this goes back a long ways.
Yeah, it goes older. It goes into an older, much older calendar. The calendars can be rerouted over time. That doesn't mean this is always the same calendar that humans had for thousands of years. There may be a much older calendar with these zodiac signs that could have potentially had more than just 12 months in a year.
Yeah, I'm seeing that, I'm seeing that we don't have to always give in to these man-made constructs, these things. I mean, we talked about it before that man has taught us human intelligence supposedly has taught us that time is linear. We have found out that time, in fact, is not linear on this show. For other shows, you can go back and click on previous shows. You can click on the little timestamp there, just so you know, folks. You can find these previous discussions. So when we refer to them, they're easy to find more discussions. Dive in deep. I go back and listen to our old shows all the time, just so I can stay abreast of everything. Hey, before we move on to our next topic here, Blue, let me ask you, where do you stand in this? This is different than you, right? Because you're a fusel. You're not a starseed, or are you a starseed? Remind me of that whole situation.
It's a hybrid. Extraterrestrial hybrid walk-ins are kind of saying the Arcturus species is starseeds. I'm more of an infused lateral term. So I more have a bigger concept of my celestial domain than others. But there are several of us out there. And we are programmed to certain timeline events, and we can walk in through that. Ophiuchus has a celestial timeline event that could maintain in a higher domain and interlink between the higher awareness streams of those here on this planet and other subsystems potentially.
That's curious stuff there. We're going to have to dive back into this at another date, because I can tell that's a big deal for us to talk about. Tell me more about this Golden Dome. I've heard Trump talking about it. I've heard that, this is a thing. Now, people, let me just say this. It's not made of gold, and it won't be an actual physical dome. He's not trying to block the sun. He's not trying to put us underneath a giant glass bowl upside down on the floor like you've seen on The Simpsons and other shows. Is that right?
Exactly. The Golden Dome is kind of like similar to what the Iron Dome was. But the Golden Dome is it's a missile defense system. So it pretty much goes into the upper hemisphere, and it has certain satellite terms as well as other requisitional effects from radar systems that disengage certain missiles and perimeters upon impact from potentially hitting that area. So it would scan that perimeter and knock it off its defensive line. There could potentially be an ally as well if impervious effects go into a mission that, if it's nuclear or radioactive, that those subsonic missiles would not only just be disengaged from certain frequency streams, but they would also be dismantled before they even hit humankind from below. Now, the Golden Dome is a protective layout, and it also protective layout that works through terms and allies with SpaceX and Elon. So through the projects and as well as communication satellite terms, as well as where things are and how they outline and where they're going from there. The main reason why Donald Trump has even implemented this, and yes, Space Force works along the protocols as well, is to create protective outlet, especially for this country. I mean, eventually for mankind, but the way things are going right now, it ends up being an ultimatum threat when missiles end up surging themselves and going downwards. That's it. It needs to be discontinued, and it's one of the reasons why he keeps directing out peace. We need peace. Others need to stand down to the way they're acting and coordinate proper. Otherwise, we're going to have to create something to protect us because we don't know. I mean, we're trying our best to maintain that code of ethics out there. But this recently why he did what he did with these certain nuclear sites. Do you want a potential discrepancy upon the plateau and utilizing them for negative? No, maybe it's a wake-up call to people to use these nuclear agents instead of something of a defense against each other. Use it for something of good.
Go
ahead.
No, I was just going to say, we've heard the term Iron Dome before, and that relates to the protection system that we have protecting Israel. And what that does is that involves us on many platforms as well, because we have ships in the area and fleets in the area that can participate in that dome. So it's almost like an invisible net or an invisible encasing of protection. That's fascinating to me. Why do you think Trump called it the Golden Dome as opposed to our Iron Dome? Is it just to differentiate in it? Or is it because he's called this error the golden error and kind of wants everything to be assimilated and with the same ideas.
Well, it's a much larger scale U.S. version designed on a much broader scale to protect the U.S. territory. But, eventually, yeah, Will's planet is one. We want to protect each other. But until then, we got all these threats. And we recently gone into presidency, the threats have gotten much larger. What do? We're trying to enact peace everywhere. It's not doing much good. There's a coordinated effect now. We're going to have to disengage things. If we got to disengage things and stop them from happening, fine. I'd rather stop them from happening before they hit the planet, before they hit each other, than to make it worse to the point of a nuclear event.
And that brings me to the recent event here with Trump using those big bombs there, those massive ordnance bunker penetrating bunker busters, whatever you want to call it. And you look at the satellite images, and even I hesitated at first. I was like, doesn't look like anything happened. What you got to realize is that penetrated and those explosions and vibrations happened well below the Earth's surface. Do you feel good about the way Trump handled this, or do you think this is a roadmap to World War III?
Well, like I had just recently said with that, they had reasons. We do not want nuclear warheads or other entities causing and catalyzing problems with this. This is more or less a stand on perimeter and to create and coordinate, hopefully potentially peace, a wake-up scenario. Humankind does not need to utilize nuclear agents on the field to create catastrophe against each other. Maybe, like I said, certain wake-up call to say, disengage. Stop the preliminary scales of potentially of what you could do to harm each other. Start working together. Start creating peace with each other. Use the right set of laws. Humans will always have laws no matter what. And it's others to wake up to that. We do not want a nuclear event, no. But we want people to wake up, and we want them to stop the way that they're acting against each other. It is time to do that. It is time to take that peace. Take that stand.
Do you think our next topic here can relate or be part of the Golden Dome in some way? Project Stargate?
Well, Stargate, so there's two link-ups to that. There's the variable effect of the current, and then there's their variable effect of the military department, the militarized psychic ability department. Idea of utilizing researching psychic abilities for the purposes of military or intelligence. This concept real government programs, Department of Defense, CIA, NSA, other projects, perimeters, and natural psychic phenomenon to remote viewing and psychokinesis. So these departments have a substantial wavelength of utilizing military agents on the field from afar, and as well as on the field from an advances of being able to move objects with their mind. So these purposes potentially run into what they have contracted for several areas of effect, and to maintain that. Russian military has claimed to have had psychic powers as maintain that stability. USA, there are several others across the planet, the countries. With the contact of the CIA Project Stargate to move the actual mind forward and gain information from afar.
So these remote viewers, are these just random people, or are these people that have been conditioned somehow? Or maybe they're an otherworldly being, maybe there's some sort of fusel, maybe there's some sort of, I don't know, it doesn't seem to me that everybody has this skill, or do we with our third eye and it's just an untapped potential?
The one or two perimeters, like you said, normal people that run into that conditioning. So they have other agents that condition them into that field and teach them and train them into that field. Every human does have some type of higher psychic awareness train and the potential to use telepathy and psychokinesis that lock those variables because of the second, third eye we've explained before in certain shows. The residual effects to maintain and reopen the third eye through a hyponeural link and neural tech substandards advanced technologies that are implemented even from before through societies in the Antarctic Arctic realms past the Antarctic wall, certain advanced humanoid figures that have maintained that, being able to utilize that for their scientific reasons and communication lines.
You know, it's
so
very.
What it goes. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's very interesting to me. I could definitely see the military applications on this, and it has been rumored over the past decades where monumental things have happened. The government has actually physically relied on these people to assist them with locating or finding certain things or certain people. It is a real thing. It's not just. I think, is it kind of like everything else we talk about, where they put it out there in the open? And people go, oh, yeah, that's that crazy military experiment. That doesn't affect me. Is this like that, where they put out that information right in front of you so it becomes disinformation?
Box mind control variables. Most people bypass it because they're in a box mind control variable. They don't see what they are potentially allied to what they have been fixed on by the higher elites and the governments, and not really what's going on behind the scenes. There's some people that be able to wake up to that and notice, but most would just go about their day every day, and to think of real military departments are just physical layouts. I'm sorry to say there are much deeper perceptions than that. There are the perceptions of the extraterrestrial departments like us. There are the perceptions of the psychic departments that have been going on for years and years and years through the government. And there are other military programs, too, that have been adjacent into the higher domains.
It's crazy to me because, you know, not only do they put it out in plain view, but I know they also do that through Hollywood as well. The thing that comes to my mind immediately, even though I'm not a George Clooney fan, he started a movie called The Men Who Stare at Goats. And that's about the military applications of telepathy and psychokinesis and remote viewing and all those things. So maybe check that out to give a little clarity to what we're talking about here. At the same time, do you have these abilities? And you being a fusel, do you have some abilities like this?
Yes, I'm able to manipulate the weather substructure to an extent with emotionalized events that we explained about before. Telepathy, I have a very advanced mindset through telepathy. Most grays do, even as hybrids. And processing things goes through several other types of dimensions as well that run through the inner psyche. So. But we're going to go back to those certain aerodynamic planes that were used against the bunker. If you've noticed, there are actual extraterrestrial star units, UFOs, that look similar to that. So let's just say, hint, coding a reverse extraterrestrial technology engineering could have been maintained through that variable.
Wow.
But regardless of that, that pays even more attention to mankind. If that is the case, and there are other representatives like ourselves working to maintain the code of ethics for mankind, they got to stand down and get it together. Okay? We don't want elimination. We want healing and dedication to maintaining what is your domain here, the human race, for their domain here on this planet.
Wow. Powerful stuff there. Powerful stuff. And again, you might have to go back and listen to the show again, folks. I do that every week. I do that. So again, I look forward to talking about this in an expanded situation in the future as well. Are we ready to get on to? Oh, go ahead.
I want to explain about the Stargate, the newer processing things with Donald Trump. That was
please.
Variable. Yes, the recent Incorporated Delaware Stargate LLC, American multinational artificial intelligence, AI, hint. Or talk about certain psychic awareness streams, how they could simulate to that prospect. Joint venture created by OpenAI, SoftBank, Oracle, investment with MGX. So it's an artificial intelligence joint venture created by OpenAI and plans on investing up to a certain amount of billion AI infrastructure in the United States by 2029. It's been planned and is formally announced by 2025, January. But it's interesting because that supported status code kind of links up to what had happened. I believe it was 1977, to the Stargate project itself, the U.S. Army. How they have certain simulation speeds that could interlink to both, potentially. AI inputs variables to military strategic maneuvers to maintaining the code of ethics for mankind in the near future, joining venture into that scene, industrial effect, seeing what the USA could do to move forward through that and building that scenario.
That affects us on so many levels. It affects us in our foreign influence. It affects us in our technology superiority, our economic security, strategic military applications, ethical and regulatory challenges as well. So this is on many levels. So again, I know certain people in my personal life that have adopted a doctrine of, oh, that doesn't affect me. Dude, everything affects you. Open your eyes, open your mind. And this is just fascinating to me that this stuff is going on. I learned so much from these episodes, Blue. I just can't even tell you. It's amazing to me. It's really opened me up to a lot, and I really thank you for that. Are we ready to go on to the SCP Foundation?
Mm-hmm. Dragon of Mittenwald, SCP-5050. A large radio tower in the Bavarian Alps on the Austrian-German border. This gets interesting. It's specifically the Mittenwald municipality in Germany and the land district of Australia. So what this potential entity does, and we'll call it that because it's constantly emitting signals ranging from 2 kilohertz to 279 gigahertz over a large area. What that potentially does is cause major catastrophic problems and issues between electronics, humans, entities, the land. And the maximum range is estimated within at least 1,374 meter radius. That's pretty far. It's so extreme that it can be considered an anomaly by the destruction of the applied physics itself around the field of effect.
Is this something comparable to everybody's always talking about the 5G thing for the past 5 years or so? Is this parallel to that, or is this similar to that anyway?
Yeah, similar. They broadcast television, audio signals, as well as radio signals. Impulse fields with frequencies streams through data banks and regulate through several types of dimensions. And because it requires a significant amount of time, though, the broadcasts, they usually do not last long. They don't last long at all. So that when they get fully, they can be intercepted. They have ways to actually intercept this. So that they keep that domain, that area of effect in constant watch. And potentially this radio tower could have been man-made in the past and encrypted through scientific means. Potentially as some type of higher field emitter. And if it's a higher field emitter, it could be categorized as a weapon.
Wow. And you know, say what you will, there are people out there who tried to connect the in the arm with the 5G. And I'm not saying that that's not a thing and those people are conspiracy nuts or anything, but at the same time, something like this brings it to light. And again, right out in front of your face. So whether you believe the in the arm was the connection or the missing piece of the 5G, my question is with this SCP-5050, the Dragon of Mittenwald, is this something that works similar to what that conspiracy theory is, where it works in conjunction inside or outside of your body?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's frequencies. It could affect a lot of things, ranging from lower impulse fields to higher radionic effects. And those higher radionic effects hit the variables in the sound barriers of some kind or other objects. It could implode those objects or create an implonic field upon the human from the inside out. The frequencies are like sound. Turn up the radio, get a big boom box, get something really loud, go to stand next to a jet. You're going to notice the difference. There are some things that they use as weaponized systems that they use as an impulsive field. It bounced right back off the other perimeters, and that was used as a frequency stream in a way.
We've seen
it disengages altogether.
We've seen that in somewhere in the Caribbean. I want to say it was Cuba, right outside Florida there. But like we had representatives or a delegation overseas somewhere, and all of a sudden these people became violently sick and ill, and some died, and they think it was some sort of magical frequency. Do you think it's similar to something like that?
Sounds like some insertion of some biochemical hazard that had been incubated into the air, the priority effect, or that elevator. I mean, if it's a sickness, it potentially could be a biochemical hazard.
And one more quick question about this before we move on to the next SCP. Do you think, and I've heard this theory before, and I know I'm opening up a new can of worms, and that's okay, we can talk about it later, it's fine. But they say that the things like the pyramids and heavy stones and so forth may have been moved by frequencies or vibrations, whether it's Easter Island and those big statues or whatever. They say frequencies or vibrations may have played a part in that. Is this similar to that?
Well, yes and no. There's also the incubational code of mind and matter, moving the certain objects with the mind and using it as a hypervariable stream. There as well as equipment that utilizes a certain types of frequency streams, as well as electromagnetic impulse fields. It magnetically pushes or pulls a radiated effect around it in the elements.
It's amazing stuff there. Let's get on to our next SCP.
Yes. Oh, this is interesting. Mount Everest. SCP-5140. Okay, so we already know Mount Everest. We want to climb it. There's a lot of people that do. But do we know that there is an extra paranormal phenomenon that happens there? So this paranormal phenomenon refers to as a number of frozen corpses that are scattered across the variational codes of Mount Everest itself, located in the Himalayas of Tibet, if y'all don't know where that's at. The number increases, or the number of instances is unclear. So they could be an increase in number or a decrease, but accepted to be over 100 and below 200 at the time of writing. So at that time, that means there could be a lot more than that right now, scattered abroad. What this does, though, they are ectoentropic. So when anything warmer than that variable hits and gets anywhere closes or exposes, including body heat, they will absorb it without raising their temperature, which rests at approximately 10 degrees. This process usually renders physical contact with it fatal. So, potentially might not just be people coming up there and just trying to survive it. There could potentially be humans coming up there and have these paranormal phenomenon hit them back, because there is some type of electromagnetic field barrier or electrofield there. There is some type of spot, if you will, that could hit in inner earthen realms or certain other areas of tunnel systems.
Wow.
And that because of that higher electric field, it could create a paranormal phenomenon effect. Not all the time, but there are certain instances where it could. And this potentially is. So those humans would just become as that entity and would just die. Anything else they get close to it would do the same thing. It's like not dry ice, but what do you call that ice? It's not liquid, it's not gas. You put something in it, it instantaneously freezes. It's kind of like that in a way. It takes a little bit longer though.
So again, what you're proposing there is, yes, there's a big mountain. We can't hide it, so we're going to leave it in plain sight. And people are going to die because of a change in the altitude. People are going to die because of the effort it takes on your body. People are going to die because they can't quite make it to the very top. They're only going to make it so far. Is this a hide it in plain sight type thing, like we've talked about before? Like they can't hide it, so they're just going to come up with other avenues or other alibis or other meanings to what's happening here.
Well, hidden variables of effect, it could be something underneath that they don't want many to know about, possibly, or that they could have an interlinking event with the paranormal because of other instances where humans have died there. So it links up between two types of dimensions and stuck between that perimeter. And you got to understand that we're going to think about haunted houses and certain haunted areas, forests, if you will. Similarities. They have some type of celestial domain, either good or bad. There's forests out there, I believe, by the upper mountains area in Virginia, West Virginia, going south more. And those regions have what humans will call witches or other types of entities. They're deep in those forests, or some types of larger domain variable that's not good, and it affects on a bigger effect, a bigger line. This is something similar, but it isn't. This is more of a paranormal and an equation to contact.
Amazing.
As well as the authoritative link of the domain itself.
Wow. We've talked about the Yeti before, and that's right in that neck of the woods. But furthermore, I want to point out we've talked about Antarctica and touched on the Arctic Circle before. Russia's going up there a lot. In Antarctica, every country wants a piece, and we've talked about abnormalities. We talked about frequencies. We talked about possible aliens, a base. The Nazis were down there. And again, you can go back to the other shows and catch up on Antarctica that we've talked about. I find it eerily similar that these two very cold environments have something similar going on. Is there any chance those things are actually paralleling each other?
There are parallel dimensions that interlink between each other that cross here on this plane of existence. That's very possible.
Wow. I want to sit here and talk all day about this, but we got to move on here. Hey, one thing I definitely want to move on to is we talk about it every week. We talk about our ET of the week or extraterrestrial of the week. Are you ready to talk about that?
Yes, the Dryas. Due to them. But naturally, they're not a good race. And one of the reasons why is the visitation upon planet Earth over 20 times for purposes of kidnapping people to the reproduction, turning them into slaves, setting network strings through cooperation levels of other entities. Now, not all the trays are like that, but there are several star species of these that are kind of gone the wrong way. They have stolen up to 520 people before, but their categories have gone up in number. They do arrive from a third star constellation in Cetus. They have two potential home planets for redirectional speeds we are already aware of, at least 3.5 to 4, and one on this current domain. Colonizing planets with the help of slaves, unfortunately. So there are a compositional effects, though, similarities to them in Earth, and they're reprogrammed to certain manualization movement speeds to their own designation code and what they have. Supposedly, they revealed themselves, or going to reveal themselves to mankind in 2022, and have already done so. But that hasn't obviously happened from what was described, and they potentially may have a direct scene of a certain government from behind the effect. So, not all of mankind. Now, these races, like I said, they're not considered good. They are a mix of certain matri and grays. And they do have a symbiote of a glow upon them because they use a certain type of element. And they utilize an element from within and increase that glow. Kind of like nuclear radioactive elements. It's similar to that.
You know, I think, and I'm pulling this off the top of my head here, I think our friend Bob Lazar has talked about this in the past with element 115. Is that something similar?
I'm not quite sure if I don't know about the answers to that or not.
That's
Mike.
okay.
I'd have to look into that more because I don't want to give the wrong answers.
No, I appreciate that, but you know me, my mind works crazy and things come in and out, so I always just blurt out whatever's there. But, you know, to me, that would be a common thing. So we'll get back with an answer to that in the future, I'm sure. Are these creatures a danger to me? Do I have to be worried?
Like I said, yes, they have posed threats. They've done slave networking with other species. They are a mixology point between a mater gray and a certain type of other species. They have, there are some of them that potentially could be an equalized firm of action, and they do not potentially do on a negative stance, but most of them are kind of gone away, and they have utilized several colonies and several planets with this type of networking stream.
Does this say the name of the species again?
Dreas.
All right, Dreas. Are the Dreas possibly working in connection with the good versus evil forces that we often come back to here on our planet?
Yeah, the cooperational events could be working alongside some of the mater gray, which are not good, and coordinating some of constellated slavery work from behind the scenes, interplanetary, interspecies slavery.
Is this possibly why in the past we've heard in the Bible and the Hollywood and everybody depicts the building of the pyramids by slaves? Is it possible that those entities were here driving the human race as slaves? Maybe it wasn't such a religious type thing as we thought?
Mm-mm.
Wow.
There's another coordinate. No, it doesn't go to that level, but I'm not saying that there are not humans who actually help maintain code of ethics at certain timelines, but that variable runs even more ancient than that. But when you're going to the Giza platforms and the pyramids, that it's more of a cosmic divine nature and something that runs into the Teros and Telos societies, the Intergarthan realms, the tunnelized systems, the Atlanteans, the Lemurians, all that, Mount Shasta, everything, the interlink. This itself is its own domain. With the Dreas is different. They're moralized colonization, taking humans and putting them on other soap systems and utilizing that for their own factor. They're not the only type. They're lower on the variable. They're not as bad. They're the main ones that are really bad on that, the Draconians. The Draconians, the Brills, they like to deal with that trafficking scenario. And I'm talking about just the human part. I'm talking about the actual interplanetary species work behind the scenes and those sub-tunnelized systems and actual nexus domains and using portals to traffic these humans elsewhere. Yes, that's possible. Yes, they're utilizing certain technologies from behind the scenes clonification speeds to redirecting the molecular structure of mankind using several other factors. I can go on, but that might be another show.
No, that's great.
I'll end up with the book there.
No, that's great. And that, and again, people, I'm tired. People might be tired of me saying it, but we've talked in-depth discussion about everything you just brought up there. So please go back to previous shows if you want. I do that all the time. I love it when we talk about the ET of the week. How about we talk about your positions with the Space Force and the Federation?
Well, here, it gets interesting. Obviously, we got all this stuff going on with Israel recently, wars and whatnot. But what's going on with the ET part? So, former Israel space chief says the U.S. in contact with Galactic Federation of Aliens, and Trump knows. Trump being allied to Israel as it is, and motivational certain techniques behind the scenes. Now, potentially that there are motivators, those we deal with this space itself, Air Force, that designated code that they have been in contact with these beings. So the Federation, the Galactic Federation is real. Hybrid program has been going on for a long time. And we're going to have to move eventually soon that the technology is forward and start exposing certain things into event. So this being played out through that. We have as well Elon Musk reportedly stepped down from the Trump role of service limit years. Now that I know this was a while back ago, but more recent events, they did have a fight recently. They've been going through a lot of stuff, but they're still allies. They're still working with certain terms together if people pay attention. So, and Starlink is going to stay like it is. It's not going to go down. And the SpaceX will stay firm to its actions, as well as Space Force and the department. And Elon Musk is still working through his Space Force with certain designated speeds, especially through technologies at hand that are way more advanced than people would understand, including through our rules in our department, too. Now, another thing is recommendation to the bridges across this country and maybe even across the planet. Risk of collapses. 68 bridges in the U.S. alone, valuation. We have ones here in West Palm Beach that I saw purposely. It looked like they hacked away at it and sectionalized it, never done nothing to it. Either they could have been certain entities. We've talked about this before, that sabotage, like the bridge. We have the Simpsons, watching the Simpsons, how that bridge, the boat with the bridge, they talked about that and showed it in the Simpsons. It actually happened. And we're having all these problems with all these infrastructures now. If we had a buildup of America through Biden's term, where? I'm just curious, Mike, where the hell's that buildup?
Right?
It looks like it was built down.
Absolutely. Up. Absolutely. It's crazy to me because we've talked about this previously as well. And the fascinating thing to me is that's what Pete Buttigieg took care of, was transportation issues and the bridges. And that's what the infrastructure bill was about. No, if you really read the infrastructure, it's about infrastructure, but it's about sending money to all these watered down laundromats that they have set up all over. It's crazy. The Inflation Reduction Act, that didn't, again, it's the opposite of what it says it is. But don't worry, you can read the bill after we pass it, Nancy Pelosi. It's crazy to me that we still have infrastructure problems when we had this great infrastructure bill. You would think after 4 or 5 years it would be taken care of. So I don't doubt anything that you're saying, and I find it to be highly correct, just based on my observations the past several years. Is there anything that the Space Force or the Federation or the Trump administration is doing or can do to fix these problems?
Recommendations of looking into what was already being built with all these immigrants and other entities that had come in to deal with that, and redirect and see if there is actual problem. Because I know that they may be good builders, there may be some good builders, but learning effect from where they come from and where they're coming from here. We have to play on a better protection scenario, because number one, some of these had a reason to do and demolish and cause a bad scene and not correct it better. The buildings, the foundations, the areas, this, that, whatever. And there are others that are just purposely doing it on purpose, just to take everything away and rip apart the lands. And just leave it there and take a long, long time just to make a building. And all that stink, all that mess. Humans need to create an equilibrium here, because with building back America or creating a foundation for mankind, there has to be a stability. And that's not corrected when the buildings are coming down or something else is happening. When we're dealing with airplanes now, and we're dealing with the space shuttles too, with SpaceX having problems. This is where we need to take concern into effect, because there could potentially be risks and players of risks making that happen. And causing more compression upon mankind between the buildings and the aerodynamics of the vehicles itself. Got to create a better protective role. Go back to what was placed, see what needs to be fixed, and if there's a problem there, do not let mankind even go in the building or go in that bridge or go in that airplane until that shit's fixed, because there is a major hazard there.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say we found out recently about the radar system for the airports and the way we have everything set up. We're operating on computers that are well over 50 years old. So computers that are older than a lot of people are responsible for everybody's safety. The average bridge in this country is well over 50 years old as well. So there's absolute credibility. Now, I'm not saying those bridges and so forth can't stand. I mean, we've seen great structures from the Roman Empire, the pyramids and so forth, that stood the test of time to a degree. Just amazing to me that we can build these things, and when they're falling apart, we can actually go ahead and try to give them a head start into falling apart here, and that's highly dangerous if you ask me. Blu, I'm always fascinated with your position with the Space Force and the Federation. Can you remind everybody what your positions are with the Space Force and the Federations briefly before we go?
Unified Federation President, Intergalactic Commander, and the Extraterrestrial Department of Space Force, Unit 51, quantum twin to Donald Trump, as well as an extraterrestrial architect who has maintained several types of documentations to corporations throughout the years. Not just me, but there are the Starseeds in our department that actually help and rehabilitate mankind to making and maintaining a better future for all. And we can all do this. There are hyphenated agents like ourselves rehabilitating, helping, but also for you humans to an understanding for your own levels as a higher species, grasp that code of ethics and grasp that knowledge and be able to maintain your own code of ethics and knowledge and get out of your boxes. You start using your own self-awareness, because that's where it's going to lead. You can't stay stuck in one spot forever. It's not how humans were created. They were created to move forward. They were created to make an impact upon civilizations the proper way.
Powerful stuff there. And that's going to wrap it up for episode 71. Just like that, we're out of time. Folks, I do want to thank you for watching. I do want to thank you for listening. And hey, reach out to us on the socials. We do respond. Until next time, until we do 72. And by the way, congratulations on 71, Blue. That's a monumental thing. Not many people can make it that far with messages or trying to reach out to people. So I'm very proud of you. And folks, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And we'll talk to you again real soon, okay?
Thank you, Mike. Are we good?